Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Endeavour, watching the stars drift past through the main viewport. The ship hummed quietly as it traveled through deep space toward their next assignment. Jake had been a starship captain for 12 years, but the vastness of space still amazed him every single day. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," said Communications Officer Tom Bradley from his station. His voice carried a note of curiosity that made Jake turn around immediately. "What kind of strange, Tom?" Jake asked, walking over to look at the readings on Tom's screen. "It looks like a distress signal, sir. Very weak and coming from about 3 light years off our current course. The signal is old, maybe transmitted months ago, but it's definitely artificial." Jake studied the data streaming across the monitor. The signal was faint and broken, like someone trying to call for help with a dying radio. Something about it made his chest feel tight with worry. "Can you clean it up? Make it clearer?" Jake asked. Tom worked at his controls for several minutes, his fingers dancing over the keyboard. Slowly the static began to fade, and the signal became stronger. What they heard next made everyone on the bridge stop what they were doing. The voice was clearly not human. It spoke in musical tones that rose and fell like singing, but underneath the alien melody was something unmistakable. Desperation. Fear. A cry for help that needed no translation to understand. "My God," whispered Dr. Emily Carter, the ship's science officer. She had come up to the bridge when she heard about the signal. "That's a genuine alien distress call. This could be the most important discovery in human history." Jake looked at the navigation display. Their current mission was to establish a mining colony on Kepler 438b. The colonial administration had made it very clear that this mission was top priority. Delaying it could mean losing valuable resources and putting human expansion plans behind schedule. But the alien signal kept playing, that haunting voice calling out across the empty darkness of space. How long would it take us to reach the signal's origin point? Jake asked his navigator, Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell. "About 18 hours at maximum speed, sir, but that would put us 2 days behind schedule for the mining colony." Jake felt the weight of command pressing down on him. Every captain faced moments like this where following orders competed with doing what felt right. The smart career move was obvious. Stay on course, report the signal to Colonial Command, and let someone else investigate. "Dr. Carter, what do you think we're dealing with here?" Jake asked. Emily pulled up her analysis on the main screen. "The signal originates from Kepler 442b, a planet we know can support life. Based on the mathematical patterns in the transmission, we're looking at a species with advanced technology. But Captain, the signal is getting weaker. Whatever's happening to them, I don't think they have much time." Jake closed his eyes and made his decision. "Tom, send a message to Colonial Command. Tell them we've detected an alien species in distress and are investigating. Sarah, change course for Kepler 442b, maximum speed." "Sir, are you sure about this?" asked Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Walsh, Jake's second-in-command. "Command won't be happy if we delay the mining operation." "I'm sure, Ryan. If there's a chance we can help, we have to try." The next 18 hours passed slowly. The crew worked to learn everything they could about their destination. Kepler 442b was slightly larger than Earth, with thick forests and vast oceans. Or at least, it used to have forests and oceans. When the Endeavour finally arrived in the system, what they found shocked everyone. The planet below them was dying. Where satellite images from 50 years ago showed green continents covered in dense vegetation, now there was only brown and gray wasteland. The oceans had shrunk dramatically, leaving behind dried lake beds and empty river channels. "Jesus," Tom whispered as he stared at the planet on the main screen. "What happened down there?" Dr. Carter ran every scan she could from orbit. The results painted a picture of ecological disaster beyond anything humans had ever witnessed. The planet's atmosphere was thin and dusty. The temperature readings showed extreme swings between burning hot days and freezing nights. Most disturbing of all, the scanners detected very few large life forms remaining on the surface. "I'm reading some population centers," Emily reported, "but the life signs are weak and scattered. If I'm reading this correctly, we're looking at maybe 50,000 individuals on a planet that once supported billions." Jake felt sick to his stomach. They were witnessing the death of an entire civilization, an entire species. "Are they responding to our communications?" Jake asked Tom. "I'm sending out friendship signals on multiple frequencies. Wait, I'm getting something back. It's weak, but they're responding." The alien voice came through the speakers again, but this time it sounded different. Where the distress signal had been desperate and afraid, this new voice carried a note of surprised hope. The musical tones seemed to ask a question. "They want to know who we are," said Dr. Carter, who had been working on the translation protocols. "I think they're asking if we're here to help." Jake took a deep breath. "Tell them we are humans from the planet Earth. Tell them we heard their call for help and came as quickly as we could." The response came back immediately, filled with what sounded like overwhelming relief and gratitude. Over the next few hours, the humans and the aliens worked to establish better communication. The aliens called themselves the Volani, and their leader was named Elder Theron. Through careful translation work, they learned the terrible story of what had happened to this once beautiful world. 60 years ago, their sun had produced a massive solar flare. The radiation had damaged their planet's magnetic field and disrupted weather patterns across the globe. The careful balance that had sustained their civilization for thousands of years collapsed in just a few decades. The Volani had tried everything to save their world. They were peaceful people who had never needed to fight wars or overcome great disasters. Their technology was advanced but specialized for living in harmony with nature, not for surviving when nature itself turned against them. "We are grateful. You have come." Elder Theron's translated words appeared on the communication screen. "But I fear you arrived too late. We have food enough for perhaps 6 months more. After that, our people will begin to die of hunger." Jake stared at the message, feeling the weight of an entire species' survival resting on his shoulders. The Endeavor was just one ship with a crew of 200. How could they possibly save 50,000 dying aliens on a world millions of miles from the nearest human colony? But as Jake looked around the bridge at his crew, he saw the same determination in their eyes that he felt in his own heart. They had come this far. They couldn't just leave now. "Dr. Carter," Jake said quietly, "how fast can you learn everything there is to know about Volani biology and their food requirements?" Emily smiled grimly. "Give me 12 hours, Captain. We're going to save them." The argument started early the next morning in the ship's conference room. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Walsh stood at one end of the table, his face red with anger. Captain Jake Morrison sat calmly at the other end, but his jaw was set in a way that told everyone he would not back down. "Captain, this is madness," Ryan said, slapping his hand on the table. "We have orders to establish the mining colony. The colonial administration is expecting us. We can't just abandon our mission to play heroes for aliens we don't even understand." "We're not abandoning anything, Ryan. We're doing what's right," Jake replied. "These people are dying. If we leave now, they'll all be dead in 6 months." Dr. Emily Carter looked up from her tablet where she had been studying the biological data they had gathered. "Ryan, I understand your concerns, but this is bigger than our original mission. We're talking about an entire species facing extinction." Ryan turned to face her. "And what about our own species? What about the colonies that need the resources? From Kepler 438b, what about the families back on Earth who are counting on us to do our jobs?" Chief Engineer Lisa Rodriguez spoke up from her seat near the wall. "The mining operation can wait a few months. These people can't." The room fell silent for a moment. Jake could see his crew was divided. Some agreed with Ryan that they should stick to their original mission. Others supported helping the Volani no matter what the cost. "I've made my decision," Jake said finally. "We're staying to help, but I won't order anyone to participate. This has to be voluntary." Over the next several hours, Jake met with each department head individually. The picture that emerged was both hopeful and terrifying. Dr. Emily Carter had spent the entire night studying Volani biology, with the help of Elder Theron and his science advisors. What she discovered was fascinating and deeply troubling. "The Volani are incredible creatures," Emily explained to Jake in her laboratory. "They're herbivores with a digestive system that's far more efficient than ours. They can extract nutrients from plants that would be completely useless to humans. That sounds like good news, Jake said. It would be, except their efficiency comes from being highly specialized. They can only digest certain types of plant compounds. The foods we brought from Earth would actually make them sick. Emily pulled up a holographic display showing the Villani digestive system. It was unlike anything Jake had ever seen, with multiple chambers and specialized organs designed to break down complex plant molecules. It gets worse, Emily continued. The plants they need to survive are almost extinct on their planet. They've been surviving on algae and root vegetables, but even those are failing. Their soil has been contaminated by radiation from the solar flare, and it can't support the plants they need. Jake felt his heart sink. So even if we could bring them food from Earth, it wouldn't help? Not directly, but I have an idea. It's risky, and it's never been tried before, but it might work. Meanwhile, Chief Engineer Lisa Rodriguez was conducting her own assessment of what it would take to help the Villani. The results were equally daunting. Captain, to produce enough food for 50,000 Villani, we would need to convert most of our cargo bays into growing facilities, Lisa explained as they walked through the ship's hydroponic gardens. We'd have to strip out our manufacturing equipment, our spare parts storage, even some of our backup life support systems. Would that leave us stranded here? Jake asked. Possibly. If something went seriously wrong with our main systems, we might not have the parts to fix it. And even if we did everything perfectly, we could only feed maybe a few thousand Villani for a few months. Jake stopped walking and turned to face Lisa. What aren't you telling me? Lisa smiled grimly. That I've already started drawing up the plans. If Dr. Carter can figure out how to make food the Villani can digest, I can figure out how to grow enough of it. Communications Officer Tom Bradley had his own challenges. Getting approval for a rescue mission from Colonial Command was proving nearly impossible. I've been trying to reach Admiral Hayes for 6 hours, Tom reported to Jake on the bridge. Every time I think I'm getting through, some bureaucrat tells me I need to file a different form or get permission from a different department. What about emergency protocols? Jake asked. They say this doesn't qualify as an emergency because it doesn't involve human lives. Sir, I think they're going to order us to abandon the Villani and proceed to the mining colony. Jake felt anger building in his chest. The idea that human bureaucrats sitting safely on Earth could decide the fate of an entire alien species was infuriating. Keep trying, Tom, and start reaching out to other human colonies. Maybe someone out there has supplies or equipment they can spare. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Medical Officer Dr. Susan Phillips had been working with Villani healers to understand their physiology when she made a startling discovery. Captain, you need to see this, Susan called Jake to the medical bay. Elder Theron was there along with 2 other Villani who served as their species' medical experts. Susan had set up a microscopic display showing Villani digestive bacteria. Look at this. The Villani have symbiotic bacteria in their stomachs that help them digest plant matter. These bacteria are incredibly sophisticated. Jake looked at the tiny organisms swimming on the screen. I don't understand. How does this help us? These bacteria can be modified, Elder Theron explained through the translator. His voice carried a note of excitement that Jake hadn't heard before. In our ancient past, our ancestors used similar techniques to adapt to new foods when they migrated to different continents. Dr. Phillips nodded enthusiastically. If we can modify Earth fungi and bacteria to work with Villani digestive systems, we might be able to create hybrid organisms that can grow in the contaminated soil and produce nutrients the Villani can digest. For the first time since arriving at Kepler 442b, Jake felt a spark of real hope. But that hope was tested when the first message from Colonial Command finally came through. Admiral Patricia Hayes appeared on the main screen, her expression stern and disapproving. Captain Morrison, you are ordered to cease all unauthorized contact with alien life forms and proceed immediately to Kepler 438b to establish the mining colony as planned. Any delay in this mission will result in court-martial proceedings. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. Every single one of them was watching him, waiting to see what he would do. Tom Bradley spoke first. Captain, I'm getting responses from 3 human colonies. They're willing to send supply ships with equipment and volunteers. Lisa Rodriguez stepped forward. Sir, I can have the first growing bays ready in 48 hours. Dr. Carter joined them on the bridge. I think we can modify the bacteria. It will take time, but it's possible. Jake looked back at Admiral Hayes on the screen. Admiral, with respect, I cannot in good conscience abandon these people. We're staying. Hayes's face grew even sterner. Captain Morrison, you are relieving yourself of command. Colonel Walsh will take over and proceed with the original mission. All eyes turned to Ryan Walsh. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he walked over to stand next to Jake. I'm sorry, Admiral, but I agree with Captain Morrison. We're staying to help the Volani. One by one, every officer on the bridge stepped forward to stand with their captain. Jake felt pride swell in his chest. This was why he loved serving with these people. Admiral Hayes shook her head in disgust. You're all making a terrible mistake. Hayes out. The screen went dark, but the bridge was filled with determined faces. They had made their choice, now they had to make it work. Dr. Emily Carter had not slept in 36 hours. Her eyes burned as she stared at the microscopic display showing her latest attempt at creating hybrid organisms. Like the 12 attempts before it, this one was also failing. Come on. She whispered to herself, adjusting the genetic modification parameters for the 13th time. There has to be a way to make this work. The laboratory around her was a mess of equipment, sample containers, and data tablets. She had been trying to create earth fungi that could process the contaminated soil of Kepler 442b and produce nutrients that Volani digestive systems could handle. So far, every attempt had ended in failure. Either the fungi died in the alien soil, or they grew but produced compounds that were toxic to the Volani, or they simply could not create the specific proteins and sugars that the aliens needed to survive. Captain Jake Morrison entered the lab carrying 2 cups of coffee. Emily, you need to take a break. You're going to collapse if you keep this up. I can't stop now, Jake. Every hour I waste means more Volani get weaker. Elder Theron told me yesterday that 3 more of their people died from hunger. 3 more. Jake set one of the coffee cups next to her workstation. Killing yourself won't save them. Take 15 minutes. Clear your head. Maybe a fresh perspective will help. Meanwhile, Chief Engineer Lisa Rodriguez was having her own problems in Cargo Bay 2. She and her team had been working around the clock to convert the massive space into a growing facility. The work was dangerous and exhausting. Careful with that power conduit, Lisa shouted to Engineer Mike Stevens as he worked to reroute electricity to the new hydroponic systems. If you short that out, we'll lose life support to half the ship. The engineering team had already stripped out most of the ship's manufacturing equipment and spare parts storage. The USS Endeavour was slowly being transformed from a deep space exploration vessel into a floating farm. If something went seriously wrong with their main systems now, they might not have the parts needed to fix it. Rodriguez, we've got a problem, called out Lieutenant Anna Wilson from across the cargo bay. The soil processors aren't working right. The contaminated samples from the planet's surface are killing our test plants faster than we can grow them. Lisa wiped sweat from her forehead and walked over to examine the problem. The Volani soil was more toxic than they had realized. It contained radioactive particles and chemical compounds that were deadly to most Earth-based plant life. We need to find a way to clean the soil first, or create a barrier system that can protect our plants, Lisa said. But even as she spoke, she knew they were running out of time and resources. Back on the bridge, Communications Officer Tom Bradley was having slightly better luck. 3 human colonies had responded to his emergency broadcasts and were sending help. Captain, I've got good news and bad news, Tom reported to Jake. The good news is that the colony on New Geneva is sending a supply ship loaded with farming equipment and food synthesizers. The colony on Kepler 186F is sending medical supplies and volunteers. What's the bad news? Jake asked. The nearest supply ship won't arrive for 6 weeks. The Volani might not have that long. Jake felt the familiar weight of command pressing down on him. Every decision he made could mean the difference between life and death for thousands of innocent people. The breakthrough came from the most unexpected source imaginable. Engineer Mike Stevens had been working 18-hour days helping Lisa convert the cargo bays. During his rare breaks, he had been tending to a small hydroponic garden in his quarters where he grew vegetables and, against ship regulations, a few marijuana plants for personal use. "Captain, you're not going to believe this," Mike said, bursting into Jake's ready room with barely contained excitement. "I think I found part of the solution." Mike explained that he had been running tests on various earth plants to see how they responded to Villani soil samples. Most plants died quickly, but his marijuana plants not only survived but actually seemed to thrive in the contaminated environment. "Sir, I know I'm not supposed to have these plants, but they're producing compounds that seem to neutralize some of the toxins in the Villani soil. Dr. Carter thinks she can use these compounds to help her modified fungi survive." Jake looked at the eager young engineer and made a decision that would have gotten him court-martialed under normal circumstances. "Mike, as of right now, you're the ship's official botanical specialist. I want you to work with Dr. Carter to scale up production of whatever plants we need. And Mike, good work." The combination of Mike's plants and Emily's modified organisms finally produced the breakthrough they needed. The hybrid fungi could not only survive in Villani soil, but could actually clean some of the contamination while producing edible nutrients. The first successful test harvest was tiny, enough food to feed maybe 20 Villani for one day. But it proved the concept worked. Elder Theron was so moved when he tasted the first hybrid food that tears ran down his elongated face. "This tastes like hope," he said through the translator. However, success brought new problems. Some of the Villani were suspicious of the strange new food. A group led by Elder Keston argued that eating human-created food would contaminate their pure Villani nature. "We have been Villani for 10,000 years, Keston declared at a gathering of his people. "Better to die as ourselves than live as something else." Young Lyria, Elder Theron's daughter, stood up to speak. She had been working closely with the humans and had learned some basic English. "Father Keston, the humans did not come here to change us. They came to save us. This food will let us stay Villani for 10,000 more years." The debate split the Villani community. Some embraced the human help, while others preferred to face extinction rather than accept change. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Walsh was dealing with increasingly angry messages from Colonial Command. Admiral Hayes had sent 3 more orders demanding that the Endeavour abandon the rescue mission. "Captain, they're threatening to send a military ship to arrest us," Ryan reported. "Admiral Hayes says we have 48 hours to comply with orders, or face charges of mutiny." Jake looked out at the dying planet below them, then at his crew working tirelessly to save an alien species they had never met before. "Ryan, send this message to Admiral Hayes. The USS Endeavour will complete its humanitarian mission. If Earth wants to court-martial us for saving lives, so be it." As the first week of rescue operations ended, the humans had managed to produce enough food to feed about 500 Villani for a month. It was progress, but they needed to scale up production by a factor of 100 if they were going to save everyone. The real test was yet to come. The disease struck without warning on a Tuesday morning. Dr. Emily Carter was checking on the latest batch of hybrid organisms when she noticed something wrong. The fungi that had been growing successfully for 2 weeks were turning black and dying. Within hours, the infection had spread to every growing facility on the ship. "We've lost everything," Emily told Captain Jake Morrison, her voice shaking with exhaustion and despair. 3 weeks of work, gone. All our food production has stopped." Jake felt his heart sink as he looked at the dead organisms in the laboratory containers. Around them, the Endeavour's crew worked frantically to understand what had gone wrong, but the infection was spreading faster than they could study it. "How long before the Villani start starving again?" Jake asked. "They have maybe 10 days of stored food left," Emily replied. "If we can't solve this, everything we've done will be for nothing." The crisis brought together the best minds from both species. Dr. Emily Carter worked alongside Villani biochemist KL, a brilliant scientist who had spent his life studying plant diseases. Medical officer Susan Phillips collaborated with Villani, healers who understood their people's biology better than anyone. "The infection is not random," Kale explained through the translator during an emergency meeting. It targets the exact proteins our people need to survive. Someone or something designed this to destroy our food supply. You think this was done on purpose? Jake asked. Elder Theron looked grim. 60 years ago, when the solar flare struck our world, many of our food plants died from similar infections. We thought it was natural, but now I wonder if the radiation changed something in our soil that makes these diseases stronger. Dr. Phillips had an idea. What if we combine our, approaches? Human antibiotics are designed to kill bacterial infections, but they might be too strong for your delicate organisms. However, Villani healing compounds are gentle but might not be powerful enough alone. Working together, the human and Villani scientists spent 3 days testing different combinations. The breakthrough came when Emily discovered that a traditional Villani healing tea, when mixed with a mild human antibiotic, could kill the infection without harming the hybrid organisms. It's working, Emily announced to the crowded laboratory as the test samples showed healthy growth. The combination therapy is clearing the infection. The success of the joint research project changed everything. Humans and Villani began working together as true partners rather than rescuers and refugees. Chief Engineer Lisa Rodriguez learned Villani techniques for growing structures from living materials. The Villani had once built their entire civilization using bioarchitecture, growing buildings and machines from specially designed organisms. This is incredible, Lisa told Jake, as she examined a Villani structure that was part building and part plant. They can grow a factory that produces exactly what they need, then compost it when they're done. No waste, no pollution. In return, Lisa taught the Villani about human engineering principles. Young Villani like Lyria proved to be remarkably quick learners, grasping concepts of mechanical engineering and energy systems that their people had never needed before. Your machines are so clever, Lyria told Lisa in her improving English. They do not grow, but they can be built quickly and changed easily. We could combine your machines with our growing techniques. The collaboration produced innovations neither species could have achieved alone. Hybrid growing systems that combined human technology with Villani bioarchitecture could produce food more efficiently than either approach by itself. Meanwhile, Tom Bradley received the news they had all been hoping for. Captain, the first supply, ship from New Geneva just entered the system. They're carrying enough equipment to expand our food production by a factor of 10. The supply ship brought not just equipment, but people. Agricultural specialist Robert Chen had volunteered to leave his comfortable position on New Geneva to help save an alien species he had never met. I heard what you folks were doing out here, Robert told Jake when he came aboard the Endeavor. I've been working with food systems my whole life, but I've never had a chance to help save an entire species. How could I pass that up? Terraforming expert Angela Torres brought experience in large-scale environmental modification. I've helped terraform 3 human colonies, she explained to the assembled team, but I've never tried to heal a dying world. This is the challenge of a lifetime. The arrival of additional humans and equipment marked a turning point. Food production expanded rapidly as the teams implemented the hybrid growing systems on a planetary scale. The first major harvest produced enough food to feed the entire Villani population for 2 months. Elder Theron stood before his people as they tasted the first large-scale harvest of human Villani hybrid food. My friends, he said, his voice strong for the first time in years. For the first time in 60 years, no Villani child will go to sleep hungry tonight. The celebration was unlike anything the humans had ever witnessed. The Villani expressed joy through complex harmonical singing that filled the air with beautiful music. Human crew members found themselves crying as they listened to thousands of voices joined together in gratitude. But success brought new challenges that no one had anticipated. The improved nutrition allowed the Villani population to grow for the first time in decades. Babies were being born healthy, and elderly Villani who had been weak from hunger were regaining their strength. The population that had been stable at 50,000 began to increase. This is wonderful news, Dr. Phillips told Jake, but it means we need to plan for a larger population. We can't just keep them alive, we need to help them build a sustainable future. Some Villani communities still resisted the changes. Elder Keston continued to argue that dependence on human technology was destroying traditional Volani culture. "Look, at our young people," Keston said at a community meeting. "They spend their days learning human words and human ways. Soon there will be no true Volani left, only creatures who look like us but think like them." Lyria, now one of the leaders among the younger generation, stood to respond. "Honored Elder, the humans did not come to replace our culture. They came to save it. Dead people have no culture at all." The cultural debate reflected a deeper question that both species were grappling with. What did it mean to maintain identity while adapting to survive? How much change was acceptable before you became something different entirely? The answer came from an unexpected source. Elder Theron had been working with Captain Morrison to document Volani history and culture. Together they discovered that the Volani had faced similar challenges before. 10,000 years ago, our ancestors lived in the mountains, Theron explained to a gathering of both humans and Volani. When the climate changed, they had to move to the forests and learn new ways of living. They adapted but remained Volani. 5,000 years ago, we learned to work with metals and build cities. 3,000 years ago, we developed space, travel. Each time some of our people said we were losing our true nature, but we survived and grew stronger. Jake listened to the translation and realized something important. Change isn't the enemy of culture. The inability to change is what destroys cultures. As the fourth month of the rescue operation ended, Kepler 442b was beginning to show signs of real recovery. The hybrid organisms were not just producing food, they were starting to heal the contaminated soil. Green patches were appearing in areas that had been barren for decades. "Captain," Emily reported with excitement in her voice, "the planetary ecosystem is responding faster than we hoped. The soil remediation is working. In a few years, we might be able to start growing traditional Volani plants again." For the first time since arriving at Kepler 442b, Jake allowed himself to believe they might actually succeed in saving the Volani people and their world. 6 months after first contact, Captain Jake Morrison found himself sitting in a living building that grew from the ground like a tree, but served as a meeting hall for both humans and Volani. The walls pulsed gently with a soft green light, and the air smelled like flowers and fresh rain. "I never imagined I would see anything like this," Jake said to Elder Theron as they watched human children and young Volani playing together outside. The children had created a game that combined human ball sports with Volani harmony singing. The result was chaotic and beautiful. "Nor did I," Theron replied in English. His language skills had improved dramatically over the past months. "My people spent 10,000 years believing we were alone in the universe. Now our children grow up knowing that friendship can exist between different worlds." The cultural exchange had produced unexpected benefits for both species. Humans learned Volani meditation techniques that helped them deal with stress and make better decisions. The Volani philosophy of living in harmony with natural systems gave humans new ideas for sustainable technology. Dr. Emily Carter had become fascinated with Volani biological sciences. "They don't just study life," she explained to Jake during one of their weekly briefings. "They think of themselves as part of the same living system as everything around them. It's completely changed how I approach my research." In return, the Volani were amazed by human concepts of individual achievement and technological problem-solving. Young Volani like Lyria embraced the human idea that any problem could be solved with enough creativity and determination. "Humans never accept that something is impossible," Lyria told her father. "They see a problem and immediately start thinking of ways to fix it. This attitude could help our people face any challenge." But the success story was interrupted by a crisis from an unexpected direction. Admiral Patricia Hayes appeared on the main communication screen, her face stern and angry. Behind her stood 3 other high-ranking colonial officers that Jake didn't recognize. "Captain Morrison, this is your final warning. You have been ordered to return to Earth immediately for court-martial proceedings. Your continued defiance of direct orders constitutes mutiny." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. Every one of them had chosen to stay and continue the rescue mission despite the threat of military punishment. "Admiral, we cannot abandon our mission here. The Volani. People still need our help. Captain, you seem to be under the mistaken impression that you have a choice in this matter. The UCS Retribution is en route to your position with orders to arrest you and your crew. You have 72 hours to comply. The communication ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. A military arrest ship, Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Walsh said quietly. They're serious about this, Jake. Tom Bradley checked his communication systems. Captain, I'm getting messages from news organizations on Earth. Word about what we're doing here has leaked out. There are protests in major cities demanding that we be allowed to continue the rescue mission. The news that Earth's government was planning to arrest the crew of the Endeavour spread quickly through both human and Volani communities on Kepler 442b. The reaction was immediate and powerful. Elder Theron called an emergency meeting of all Volani leaders. These humans risked everything to save our people, he told the assembly. Now their own government wants to punish them for showing kindness to strangers. We cannot allow this. The Volani decision was unanimous. They would not permit the humans to be arrested on their world, but the approaching crisis revealed divisions within the human community as well. Some of the newer arrivals from the supply ships began to worry about their own careers and futures. I came here to help, agricultural specialist Robert Chen told Jake privately, but I have a family back on New Geneva. If Earth brands us all as mutineers, what happens to my wife and children? Jake understood the fear. Robert, I won't think less of anyone who decides to leave before the arrest ship arrives. This was my decision, and I should face the consequences alone. That's not how this works, Captain, Chief Engineer Lisa Rodriguez said firmly. We all made the choice to stay. We all believe in what we're doing. If Earth wants to call us criminals for saving lives, then maybe Earth is wrong. The debate continued for hours, but in the end, only 3 people chose to leave on the next supply ship heading back to human space. The rest decided to stay and face whatever consequences came. Meanwhile, Dr. Emily Carter and her team were making discoveries that could change everything. The hybrid organisms they had developed to feed the Volani were proving to have applications far beyond this one world. Jake, you need to see this, Emily called him to her laboratory. The bioremediation techniques we developed here could be used to heal damaged ecosystems throughout human space. We're talking about reversing environmental damage on dozens of worlds. And there's more, added Volani biochemist Kale. The Human-Volani collaboration has produced new medical treatments that could help both our species live longer and healthier lives. The scientific breakthroughs were so significant that several human colonies had officially requested permission to establish research partnerships with the Volani. Earth's government found itself in the awkward position of trying to arrest the very people who had made these discoveries possible. The arrival of the UCS Retribution created a tense standoff. Captain Maria Santos of the Retribution was a career military officer with orders to arrest Jake and his crew, but she found herself facing an unprecedented situation. Captain Morrison, I have orders to place you under arrest, Santos announced over an open communication channel. However, I'm also receiving messages from Colonial Command asking about the scientific discoveries your team has made. Elder Theron spoke directly to Captain Santos. Captain Santos, the humans you call criminals are heroes to my people. They saved 50,000 lives when they could have simply followed orders and left us to die. The standoff continued for 3 days. Captain Santos had the firepower to force the issue, but doing so would mean attacking a world where humans and aliens were working together peacefully. The political implications were staggering. The resolution came from Earth itself. Public opinion had shifted dramatically as news of the rescue mission spread. Protests demanding that the Endeavour crew be honored rather than arrested grew larger every day. Captain Morrison, Admiral Hayes, appeared on screen one final time, but her tone was different now. New orders from Colonial Command. You and your crew are to continue your mission on Kepler 442b. The charges against you have been dropped. Jake felt relief wash over him, but he was suspicious of the sudden change. What's the catch, Admiral? No catch, Captain. Earth has officially recognized the Volani as an allied species. Your rescue mission is now considered a formal diplomatic contact. Congratulations, Captain. You're not a mutineer anymore. You're an ambassador. The celebration that followed lasted for 3 days. Humans and Volani worked together to organize festivals that combined traditions from both cultures. The music, food, and art that emerged from this collaboration was unlike anything either species had created alone. Young Lyria stood before the mixed crowd during the final celebration ceremony. 6 months ago, my people were dying and alone, she said in fluent English. Today we are alive and part of something larger. We have learned that the universe is not empty and cold. It is full of friends we have not yet met. As the celebration ended and normal work resumed, Jake realized they had accomplished something more important than just saving the Volani. They had proven that different species could work together, learn from each other, and create something better than either could achieve alone. The Endeavor would remain at Kepler 442b permanently, serving as the headquarters for the first joint human-alien research facility. But its real legacy was the proof that cooperation between species was not just possible, but profitable for everyone involved. The universe suddenly seemed much less lonely. 1 year after the USS Endeavor first detected the Volani distress signal, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed Unity station. Below him, Kepler 442b sparkled with green and blue as forests and lakes returned to areas that had been barren wasteland just months before. Hard to believe it's the same planet, said Dr. Emily Carter, joining him at the window. She carried a data tablet showing the latest environmental reports. The ecosystem recovery is happening faster than our most optimistic projections. Through the clear aluminum windows, they could see the bustling activity of the first truly integrated human-alien settlement. Human prefabricated buildings stood next to Volani biostructures that grew from the ground like enormous trees. Children of both species played in parks where earth flowers grew alongside restored Volani forest plants. Emily, show me the population numbers again, Jake requested. Emily pulled up the data with a smile. Volani population has stabilized at 73,000 and growing. That's the highest it's been in 60 years. More importantly, the birth rate is now exceeding the death rate for the first time since the solar flare disaster. The recovery of the Volani people had exceeded everyone's expectations. Proper nutrition had allowed their natural regenerative abilities to repair decades of damage from malnutrition and stress. Elderly Volani, who had been weak and frail, were now healthy and active. Young Volani like Lyria had grown strong and confident, leading their people into a new era. But the changes went far beyond simple survival. The joint research facility on Kepler 442b had become the most productive scientific institution in known space. Human analytical thinking combined with Volani intuitive understanding of biological systems was producing breakthroughs at an unprecedented rate. Jake, come look at this, Chief Engineer Lisa Rodriguez called from across the observation deck. She was examining holographic displays showing the latest collaborative projects. What am I looking at? Jake asked, studying the complex three-dimensional models, bioships, Lisa explained with excitement. Lyria and Tom Stevens have been working together to design spacecraft that are partially alive. They can heal themselves, adapt to new environments, and grow additional components as needed. The concept was revolutionary. Traditional human spacecraft were built from metal and ceramic components that wore out and needed constant maintenance. Volani biotechnology could create ships that maintained and improved themselves, but lacked the speed and durability needed for long-distance space travel. The hybrid approach combines the best of both technologies, Tom Stevens explained as he joined the group. Human engineering for the core systems and navigation, Volani biotechnology for life support and self-repair. Jake shook his head in amazement. How long before we can build a prototype? 6 months, Tom replied. Lyria thinks we can have the first bioship ready for testing by then. The implications were staggering. Bioships could revolutionize space travel, making it cheaper and safer to explore distant worlds. But more importantly, they represented something unprecedented in galactic history. True technological collaboration between different species. The success on Kepler 442b had not gone unnoticed throughout human space. 7 human colonies had established formal trade and research agreements with the Volani. 3 more alien species had made contact with humanity, hoping to establish similar relationships. Captain Morrison, Communications Officer Tom Bradley, announced from his station, "Incoming priority message from Earth. It's President Chen." President Lisa Chen appeared on the main display, her expression warm and congratulatory. "Captain Morrison, I'm calling to personally thank you and your crew for your extraordinary service to both humanity and our new Volani allies." "Thank you, Madam President," Jake replied formally. "Captain, I have some news that I think you'll find interesting. The Colonial Congress has voted to establish the Interspecies Cooperation Initiative with you as its first director. Your mission will be to seek out other alien civilizations that might benefit from human assistance and partnership." Jake felt his heart race with excitement. The rescue of the Volani had been just the beginning. Now humanity was officially committed to helping other species and building a truly cooperative galactic community. "I'm honored, Madam President, but I'd like to make one request." "What's that, Captain?" "I want Elder Theron as my co-director. This initiative should be led by both humans and aliens working together as equals." President Chen smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that. Elder Theron has already agreed to accept the position." The ceremony to establish the new initiative took place in the Unity Station's main hall, a soaring space that combined human architectural principles with Volani biodesign. Representatives from 12 human colonies attended, along with delegations from Mir, 3 alien species that had made recent contact. Elder Theron spoke first, his voice strong and clear. "1 year ago, my people faced extinction. Today, we face a future brighter than anything we dared imagine. But more than our lives, you have saved our hope." Jake responded, looking out at the mixed crowd of humans and aliens. "What we've learned here is that the universe is not a competition between species. It's a collaboration. Every species has something unique to offer, and every species can benefit from working with others." Young Lyria, now serving as the Volani representative to the new initiative, spoke last. "My generation will grow up believing that cooperation between species is normal. We will explore the galaxy not as conquerors, but as friends seeking other friends." The celebration that followed featured music that blended human instruments with Volani harmonic singing. The food combined Earth spices with Volani preparation techniques. Art displays showed collaborative works that neither species could have created alone. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came when a group of human and Volani children performed a song they had written together. The lyrics were simple, sung in a mixture of English and Volani. "Stars are calling, we will answer, 2 kinds walking, one together, hand in hand across the darkness, building bridges, building hope." As Jake listened to the children's voices, he thought about how much had changed in just 1 year. The USS Endeavour had left Earth on a routine mining mission. Instead, they had discovered that the galaxy was full of potential friends facing their own challenges. The final surprise came from Dr. Emily Carter, who had been working secretly on a special project. "Jake, Elder Theron, I have something to show you," Emily announced, leading them to a restricted laboratory in the research facility. Inside, growing in a specially designed chamber, was a small tree unlike anything either human or Volani had ever seen. Its trunk showed the geometric patterns typical of Earth trees, but its leaves shifted color and sang softly like Volani forest plants. "It's a hybrid," Emily explained. "Part Earth oak, part Volani singing tree. I created it using genetic techniques we developed during the food crisis." Elder Theron approached the tree with tears in his large eyes. "It is beautiful, but what does it mean?" Emily smiled. "It means that the cooperation between our species has produced something genuinely new. Not human, not Volani, but something that could only exist because we work together." Jake touched one of the tree's singing leaves gently. The soft musical tone it produced was unlike anything in nature, a sound that spoke of hope and possibility. "This tree will be the symbol of our new initiative," Jake decided. "We'll plant one on every world where species learn to work together." 6 months later, the first bioship launched from Kepler 442b with a mixed crew of humans and Volani. Their mission was to seek out other species that might need help or want to join the growing galactic community. As Jake watched the ship disappear into the stars, he reflected on how a single decision to help strangers in distress had changed the course of galactic history. The hunger that had almost claimed the Volani was gone forever, replaced by a feast of cooperation and mutual support that would nourish countless species for generations to come. The universe was no longer cold and empty. It was full of friends waiting to be discovered, problems waiting to be solved together, and wonders waiting to be created through cooperation between different kinds of minds. The USS Endeavour, now permanently stationed as Unity Station's flagship, bore a new motto painted on its hull in both English and Volani script: "Hope shared is hope multiplied." And in the growing forests of Kepler 442b, human Volani hybrid trees sang softly in the wind, their music carrying the promise of an even brighter future among the stars.